Let me turn my mic up. What's up, y'all? It's big fight week. Welterweight supremacy. What's going on, Phil Flexing? What's going on, y'all? I wanted to get straight into the topics today about this fight, right? So, boom, 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 boom. Right? I think that's enough build-up time, right? I'm just jump right into it. We don't need to have this starting screen sitting here forever. So, what up, y'all? It's Ron Goodall over here at FightHype. So, obviously, the $1 million question, right? It's in the title, right? A little sensationalized. Is Jaron Ennis still worth the hype? Hear me out, right? It's just a question. Just a question to raise the stakes on this fight week, right? It's not just a normal fight week, right? Is this pound for pound crowning? Is this a new pound for pound guy entering the top 10, right? Is this the type of performance we're going to get from Jaron Ennis, right? What up, Phil? What up, D Shuffle? Is Boots worth the hype? Is Boots worth the hype? Bro, Boots beats your favorite boxer, no questions asked. What up, Z-Bib? Where has all these questionable energy for Boots come from? Well, I'm going to answer that question, right? And I'm going to answer it really quick and simple. With a lot of the hype that Jaron Ennis has gotten, he has pretty much has anointed almost like a boogeyman, Roy Jones-esque type of, how would I say it? Type of criticism, right? If he doesn't knock these guys out in one round, if he doesn't uppercut these guys Mortal Kombat style off the stage, if he doesn't not get touched, right? That is what a lot of people have kind of conveyed into the Jaron Ennis fight week, right? Pretty much, he's gotten a lot of criticism from the Karen fight. He's gotten a lot of criticism from the David Avanesian fight. He's gotten criticism since, I think, the Sergey Lipinets fight, right? You know, Jaron Ennis is probably one of the most talked about and most hyped up person in the welterweight division. And I think that from all the performances that asking the questions they hate, Phil, I know. It's like, bro, what is this title? Super hating. It's not super hating. It's just a question, right? Is Jaron Ennis still worth the hype? That's the question, you know? And I think for the type of praise and the type of attention that he's gotten, I think is normal for a fighter like him to get criticized at the level that he does, you know? I remember the first time I even came across Jaron Ennis, I thought this guy had all the goods. You know, he's very athletic. I think he's very flashy. I think when he's in his bag, I think he does some of the most fantastic type of stuff in the sport of boxing. I think he is very exciting in the ring. The Villa slow motion, right? The slow motion. When he was fighting in Philly, the head turns. Everything that Jaron Ennis has done has shown potential to be potentially the next guy in the sport of boxing. When I mean the next guy is the next American star that everyone is talking and raving about, right? And I think that that type of praise comes with that type of criticism. And so when is Jaron Ennis still worth the hype? I think it comes from the idea is he going to be the next Floyd Mayweather, the next Roy Jones, the next Terrence Crawford, the next electric star, the next, in a sense, when they bring up Gervonta Tank Davis knockouts, and I know that he's been heavily criticized from the Karen fight. So with that, he has a great opponent, a guy that's going to bring a lot of excitement stylistically. I know that the first time he fought Karen, he was not really engaging too much. And so a fight with Stanionis brings excitement, brings tension, brings legacy, brings belts, brings the lineal championship. It brings everything to fairly say, yeah, Jaron Ennis is worth the hype, And with this week, I think a lot of fight fans will be tuning in with that question in mind, and I think it's fair. Let's see. What up, Cal buddy? I think it's BS. Stanionis tough as fuck. I don't know if Boots gets him out of there. Yeah, asking questions definitely not hate, but it should be an easy fight for Boots stylistically, and he should fight him like Villa. Ennis by KO easy. Champion says Boots is avoiding 154 at all costs, especially Jesus Ramos. I think even with the idea of him not going to 154 has kind of created a narrative that he's been ducking, right? And so once upon a time when Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence was essentially holding up the division and waiting to be an undisputed championship, putting on an undisputed championship fight in line, everyone was saying Spence is ducking Boots, Crawford's ducking Boots. About a month ago, a lot of people have had a lot of criticism about him staying at 147, not knowing where he's gonna do, what he's gonna do, and where he's gonna fight. So I think this fight is very important for him, and I think it's very important for him to have not just a good performance, but a dominant performance to kind of shut up a lot of the naysayers and maintain that invincible status that once kept him up there, right, amongst the names of Spence and Crawford. Doughboy says, I think Boots got himself and not worry about pleasing the crowd. I think Boots got to be himself, not worry about pleasing the crowd. But I'm with Team Ennis. Let's go. Now, hear me out. I'm favoring Jaron Ennis to win the fight, and I'm favoring him to actually have a pretty sizable, comfortable performance. He's a relatively big welterweight. I think he's put on this rehydration clause for the last couple performances, which may have potentially stagnated a little bit of his showing. Plus, fighting not probably an opponent that you want to get up and train for that you've already beaten before. So giving him all the excuses in the world, he's fighting in a unification where he doesn't have to make the IBF rehydration clause. And now because of that, he's able to come in the next day, be a little bit more comfortable, motivated because he's fighting a guy which has a name in the division, plus at the same time comes with some hardware in the lineage. So I think, if anything, if Jaron has his head on straight and everything works out, this should be the best version of Jaron Ennis. Zebib says avoiding Ramos. He said he definitely should move up. Stanionis will annihilate Ennis and the whole world will know his name. Crazy how people don't understand what is Eimantas Stanionis. He will ruin all their plans, making Boots a show star and milk him. Look at his face. He looks like a drain. Looks like Devin at 135. Yeah, people have been kind of being the weight doctors throughout the week and looking at his pictures and kind of emphasizing how shrunken he looks. And he's a pretty big guy. Like, I'll be honest, I think he's probably the biggest guy at welterweight. It's kind of hard to find another welterweight his size, to be honest. I took a trip out to Philly. I brought my girl down and we visited Boots one time, not specifically in camp, out of camp. So to be fair, this was out of camp weight, but my girls met Crawford. My girls met, what was going to be his previous opponent, Cody Crowley. And she's met Jaron Ennis, and she kind of looked at me and was like, how does this guy or how are these guys all in the same weight classes? And, I kind of emphasized, Crawford moved up. This is Jaron's first weight class. But she's even kind of emphasized, he's extremely big. And if you compare him to his counterparts. So it's definitely obvious that at some point in time, if Jaron Ennis does not get his undisputed, fights or his championship unifications relatively soon, he's going to have to move up to 154, So it's no surprise that you're going to see some sunken face. But all that to say that it matters fight night. If he feels comfortable and he feels fine and he can make the weight with no, hiccups, then we got to fight. And it's fair game. That no rehydration clause, because the IBF is not the only belt. is going to play a huge factor in this. And I think that he's going to be a lot more comfortable that you're going to see from his previous fights. And Stanionis is a great opponent to showcase. If he is the guy, he's like a 4-1 favorite. And I think that at the end of the day, if Jaron Ennis comes prepared and not, lax like the Karen fight, I think he can actually have a really, really great performance. But it's against a tough guy. They'll have to milk Stanionis for the next 5 years. Mark my words. D Shuffle says, yes, sir. Doughboy says, people kill me with the 154 crap. The man clear said until he meets his goals, 147 is not going to 154. I think there was a lot of criticism, Doughboy, about the fact that he did not fight Virgil. And it left a lot of people to ask, well, then what is he going to do? Because originally it seemed like he wasn't going to get Mario Barrios. It seemed like the Brian Norman fight negotiation was not going to work out. And they claimed that Stanionis obviously, quote, didn't want the fight. So if he wasn't getting these fights at 147, then it's obvious that he goes to 154. So they kind of called him a duck because of the simple fact that they were hinting 154. His dad was mentioning allegedly there was a contract sent to Virgil Ortiz, which I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's just fighter talk. But it was a lot of hype on the idea that 154 is a possibility, and Ortiz was allegedly given a contract. So when that kind of fell through, it kind of leaves you going, well, what the hell are you going to do? Because if you're not fighting the best in your division, then why not go up to 154? Well, luckily, Eddie Hearn and them were able to strike a deal, and they did get the Stanionis fight. So now here we are. So the ducking term kind of, I guess, negates now because he actually was able to get something that he wanted. So I'll remove the theory of ducking because he got the Stanionis fight. But if he did not get this fight, and he did not get the Mario Barrios fight, and he did not get Brian Norman, then it makes no sense to stay at 147. So he got it. He emphasized he wanted to be unified. He emphasized he wanted to be undisputed. This is step 1, or step 2, technically. And good for him. So it's a worthy fight. It's a meaningful fight. And it's a fight that doesn't deserve criticism. So, and it's been ducking Stanionis since 2022. Ignace, I don't know what was going on the Showtime PBC side. They were all on the same network. So I can't really speak on why that wasn't really able to get made. They were kind of throwing politics in a lot. We'd be too quick to say ducking, no, it's mad politics about. Exactly, Phil. I didn't want to, I was very confused at that time, but I waited it out. I definitely thought there was a lot of confusion amongst their teams and Eddie Hearn and all that. But at the end of the day, now we're here. Obviously, politics has definitely shown its way of getting into the way of public perception. So, Ignis, that's not what the world you're getting your info for, bro. Boots has been trying to fight Stanionis. Yeah, I think these guys have definitely been trying to work something out. I'm not saying either one was ducking each other, but now here we are. We got the fight. They need to take the word ducking out of boxing, tired hearing it. Yeah, ducking is definitely thrown around too loosely. Don't get me wrong, there is ducking in boxing. I'm not going to sit here and say we need to get rid of the word ducking, but when you got to look at it, there's networks, there's different promotions, there's two sides of every story, So, Jaron's goal was to be undisputed at 147. 154 was not an option, in that case. And he did get the 147 unification fight. So, we really can't really... But that goes back to the title, right? Because of whatever happened a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, has led to believe that Jaron Ennis does not want to fight the best. Jaron Ennis hasn't had star-studded performances, plus wasn't being able to get in the ring with the guys. A lot of people have kind of jumped off the booze bandwagon. Let's keep it real, right? Can we just be 100% transparent? Boots' stock was rising, and amongst this stock, this hype stock, he started to get some traders to throw some stock out. Some people was jumping off the train, right? There were a lot of people jumping off the train for whatever reason. They didn't like his performance. They didn't think he was the Superman. They probably praised him way too much than probably any fighter should get. But at the end of the day, he was losing stock. So on top of that, the politics and all that stuff, the hype was slowly diminishing. He's a great fighter. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's a great fighter. He's showing everything that you're supposed to be doing as a developing fighter, and I don't really have like negativity on that. Like, you're gonna get hit, you're gonna have different styles. He hasn't had the best performances, but I don't have really anything negative to say about him as like he's a bad fighter. But to be a star in America, you got to have certain type of performances, and you got to have certain fighters and fights to make it happen. This is the type of fight that could set him apart from his counterparts, like the Brian Normans, the Mario Barrios. Virgil Ortiz just fought Madrimov, a guy that gave Crawford a really great fight. You know what I'm saying? And if Boots can actually dominate and have one of those Villa-like performances against Stanionis, I think a lot of people will jump back on this bandwagon, And I think at the end of the day, the hype will be real in a sense amongst a lot of boxing fans. You love to say somebody's ducking. Weight doctors is wild work. Yeah, I've been seeing on Twitter, everyone's been dissecting. I'm not really, he's definitely big for welterweight, but he seems to make it consistently. So, Boots with KO Stanionis. Come on, he's bigger than some guys at 154. I think he is bigger than a lot of guys at 154. We know cutting the weight gonna have an effect on that chin. It depends on how he does. Stanionis is definitely not a pushover. So, Boots is 27-0, and that's not old for 147. No, he's definitely not old. Definitely not old. Far from that. Boots is doing the same thing that Spence did. The fans to Spence jumped to Boots' wagon. Yeah, I did see a lot of Spence fans jump to Jaron Ennis fans. Might simply just because of the fact that, they want someone to be ready and prime position to fight Terrence Crawford, right? It seemed like that was the best fight for Terrence if he was going to stay at 147. If it wasn't Virgil or him, you know what I mean? But I think just kind of removing the Errol Spence and Crawford situation, I think a lot of fight fans in general are just Boots fans, right? I know there's probably a stigma of Boots just inheriting Spence fans because Spence lost to Crawford and that's what they wanted, guy to go beat Crawford. But I think there was a lot of Crawford fans as well that were Boots fans, and I think at the end of the day, I think it's just anytime a fighter gets that much type of attention, that amount of hype, they get put underneath the microscope a little bit more than the average fighter, and any type of shortcomings kind of diminishes their values. Like, they're very volatile, right? Like stock or crypto. I would like to call Jaron Ennis like a volatile fighter, When he's doing well, the stock price is like this high. When he kind of looks a little bit shaky, the stock plummets. Like, it just sells. It's not a consistency, you know what I mean? And fighters that are primed to be the next guy in the sport of boxing tend to have those type of fickle fans that kind of sell at any given moment and buy the second that you look like the goods. So that's just Jaron Ennis, and he's always going to have that type of hype-worthy or hype-bust commentary. So, where does Stanionis train? Jesus asked. Stanionis trains at Wildcard Gym with Freddie Roach. So he's training with essentially Freddie Roach and his camp and his trainer. So obviously, if you know Freddie Roach, that's Manny Pacquiao. There's an abundance of amazing fighters that have came out of Wildcard. So, and Stanionis has definitely been part of that stable for a very long time. Stanionis used to also train with Ronnie Shields back in the day, so he used to train out of Texas, who is, Charlo and Erislan De Lara. If you go further back, Pernell Whitaker, Evander Holyfield. So Stanionis has definitely been around solid training, and he has a great amateur background. So I would definitely give Stanionis a live dog chance in this fight. Even though I favor Jaron Ennis, it is boxing, anything does happen. Stanionis is tough, he's durable, he's strong, He's undefeated. He's hungry. He has punching power. He has good amateur background. He's everything that can go wrong for Jaron Ennis if he has a bad weight cut, a poor camp, a poor corner, or a poor game plan. So Stanionis definitely has a lot of experience. Stanionis has sparred guys like Ruslan Lara in the past, Miguel Cotto. I believe he sparred Miguel Cotto. If not, hold the Miguel Cotto. I might not be 100%. I have to double check with that. But he has sparred Ruslan Lara, a tricky Cuban southpaw fighter. So just using that, that's enough to let you know that he's been in there with a crafty, swift fighter, elusive, slippery technician. So this is something that Stanionis has been in the ring with before. He's worked with a lot of top guys, so he's primed and ready. There's really going to be no excuses for him on the end of fighting Jaron Ennis. Boots has always said he wants to get all the belts and unify a welterweight championship. That's why he didn't fight Virgil Ortiz. Yeah, like Revolution. I think there was just a lot of miscommunication in this camp. Because like I said, Bozy was speaking like there was allegedly a contract sent to Virgil. Somewhere along his team was kind of allegedly negotiating some term sheet. Like something was going on right there. And while Jaron Ennis was coming off the heel of just fighting Karen, he was probably just enjoying himself just to kind of turn on the internet just to find out, I don't know anything about this. And that leads to him to be confused. Leads him to, quote, not be aware of what's going on behind his back. And because of that, unfortunately, he had to speak out against whatever was happening and say, look, I don't know what was going on. I will be involved more in my business process, but no, I'm not going to go up to 154. Kind of got fans excited because it was kind of like going to be on that Turkey card. That was going to be like the best card of the year that was being advertised. And it sucks because now it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, he's going to turn on the biggest payday of his life. We already know. We've all been there. So, at the end of the day, Boots definitely is living up to what he is saying, and we'll see. I would probably duck Virgil. Not going to lie. Virgil's been on a tear. I'm not going to lie. Virgil right now, based off performances, I would probably favor Virgil if we go off resume. I would give Jaron Ennis, if they fought, probably maybe my pick, but I could probably acknowledge that Jaron Ennis could be the underdog pick, like if it comes to bookies and betting odds, I wouldn't be surprised that people put Virgil as the favorite, but I would probably roll to Jaron Ennis because of style makes fights, but that's still like kind of like a 55-45 kind of fight, so. And it could be either or on whatever given day. And because Virgil just fought Majimov, I would have to give, even on a resume, like he's been fighting Boyacek, Mean Machine. Like Virgil has Maurice Hooker. Virgil has the better resume. So because of that, like I wouldn't put it past anybody saying that Virgil would beat Jaron Ennis at all. Like that's a really 50-50 fight. Personally, I think Virgil is a beast. I did think he did lose the Boyacek fight. It was very close, but at the end of the day, he did get the win, and so I'm just going to leave it at that. Virgil was a beast. Virgil has shown time to time again he's a better fighter than I thought he was every showing. So, I kind of picked Majimov to beat Virgil, and I was wrong. So I gotta give all the credit to Virgil. So. Bro, this fight actually reminds me a bit of the Crawford-Majimov fight because everyone said Crawford's going to stop him. Majimov made it competitive, and now same is happening with Stanionis. You raise a great example because, that Eastern European style versus the slick Black American style has been very consistent amongst these last couple years, and it's been very tough for the Americans. Crawford had a very tricky time. Devin Haney had a very trickle time with Lomachenko. It's been a consistent theme. I mean, even when you go back, Crawford when he fought Mean Machine, that was a tough fight. And even though this isn't the slick Black American, but the Australian Tim Tszyu fought Bakram, it's a lot of these guys, Usyk, arguably pound for pound. Eastern European fighters have definitely shown consistency amongst these years. And even if you go further back, James Toney, when he went to cruiserweight and he fought Vasily Jirov, right? He was a gold medalist from Ukraine. James Toney, multi-division world champion, had to go fight tooth and nail to the 12th round. And it was one of the best fights out in the 90s. And stylistically, it was a barn burner. So I feel like a lot of rivalries are very popular based off its normal nationality, Mexican versus Puerto Rican, white versus black, Asian, like Japan versus, any Asian country, whatever the case is, Philippines, Mexico. I think slick black American versus Eastern European is a stylistic rivalry that just doesn't get brought up a lot. And I think this is another case where if Jaron Ennis and Stanionis come prime to prime, and Stanionis is a lot more than just, just a guy that comes forward, we're going to have one of those type of fights. And if Jaron Ennis shows, how did I even forget? Jaron Ennis had a very tough fight with Karen, even though Jaron clearly won the second fight and the first fight. That was an Eastern European fighter fighting a slick black American fighter, and it was very difficult for Jaron Ennis. Arguably his most difficult fight up to date. So at the end of the day, I think Stanionis fits the mold to present either a style where Jaron Ennis can flourish. He's bringing up Floyd Mayweather to Regotti at Atlantic City. He's hoping to have a performance like that, like everybody is. But if we really put it into perspective, Jaron Ennis, if he does not come prepared, Stanionis on paper should be tougher than Karen, should be a harder fight than Karen. And if that version of Jaron shows up against Stanionis, it could be a very difficult fight. Boots Clear said he wants to be undisputed at 147 before going to 154. Boxing fans are destroying sport with lies. Doughboy, I think it's just, to be honest, I think his dad definitely mixed. Bozy definitely said some stuff and kind of muddied up the water. So you can look the interviews up. He definitely did. Bars and Norman get no criticism for how they move. No, I think Bars and Norman definitely get a lot of criticism, right? I told Norman myself that I picked Stan Tillian to beat him. I thought Norman looked really rough against. Hey, let me pull up his resume. And I'm on record even telling Brian Norman that I picked against him. I picked Stan Tillian to beat him. Quentin Randall. Well, actually, let me take this back. When he fought on Showbox, he looked really regular, right? He looked really regular against Jesus Campos. When he fought Quentin Randall when he signed a top rank, he looked pretty, and that was on the Shakur Stevenson De Los Santos fight. And I remember feeling like, all right, there's been rumors that Brian Norman allegedly hurt Crawford in sparring. There's been rumors and stuff that's saying he fought really well against Gervonta Tank Davis. There was rumors that, him and Jaron Ennis sparred 100 times, So at this rate, I'm expecting to see something special, right? And the Quentin Randall fight didn't really give me that. And then when he fought Boca Chica, and he got dropped by Boca Chica, and the fight went to a no contest based off the cuts, it pretty much felt like the no contest from the cuts saved Brian Norman. So that's kind of like 3 fights that I'm like, yo, Brian Norman looks not like the goods. And so when he fought Giovanni Santillan, the guy that just destroyed Alexa Rocha, Santillan was not just Manny Pacquiao's sparring partner, but he was Floyd Mayweather's sparring partner. So you got a guy that is like 32-0, just destroyed Alexa Rocha, spars Pacquiao, sparred Floyd Mayweather, primed to be in his position, Robert Garcia trained fighter. I'm picking him to destroy Brian Norman, right? But Brian Norman came away as the victor, and then recently he just fought Derek Cuevas. Did get hit with a good hook in the first round, but cleaned him up in the third round. And I think people quickly forget he is the youngest male world champion in the world at the age of 24. Captured, I think, his title at 23. So all those type of performances he was doing was kind of like 20, 21, 22. So trust me, I was very critical of Brian Norman. And then Mario Barrios, hear me out. Mario Barnes, even though I got a lot of heat because I thought Mario Barnes was gonna beat Ugas, right? Everyone was like, "Oh man, why? That's a terrible pick." He did beat Ugas, but he looked kind of against the Maidana fight and the Abel Ramos fight. I mean, bro, great fight, but Mario Barnes looked terrible against Abel Ramos. So I'm criticizing practically everyone in the division, right? The division is kind of like anyone to take. So I think depending on who you're talking to, Bib, I think that's where you're going to get the criticism. With me, they all get criticism, all of them. Boots, you know, I mean, to a certain degree, Stanionis kind of, you know, isn't showing like he's the best, but he isn't showing he's the worst, you know. I think Jaron has more upside because of his athleticism and his height and his size. So, and we've seen glimpses of it when he fought Villa. So, but everyone gets criticism. Trust me. The welterweight division is not clear as day. Do you think UFC card is going to have an effect on a pay-per-view fight because at the same time? So, real quick, the Boots and Stanionis fight is not pay-per-view. It's just a DAZN subscription. So, you just turn on the app, and it's just as simple as that. But I think in the case of Jaron versus Stanionis, I mean, anytime you get fight fans, they're going to bleed into each other. But I think they're completely two different audiences, right? I think the UFC fight is Volkanovski, right? So, that's like Diego Lopez, Volkan. Yeah, I don't see it. You know, Michael Chandler, Patty Pimblett, Yair Rodriguez versus Patricia Pitbull. Don't get me wrong. Like that's a great UFC card. You know, with names that I would like to see. But nah, man. I think boxing fans and UFC fans are separate, and then certain fight fans are gonna tune into both. So I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's gonna affect it. Yeah, you know, you do need a good dance partner. What boxing fans have to realize that every fight is not going to be a good performance. Look at Floyd Mayweather, he has ups and downs. Every fighter. Doughboy, you raise a great point. And I think the title alone, right? You know, people might be like, oh, are you hating? It's not, you know. I think it's just questions the fickle fans more than the regular day-to-day boxing fans. Because the fickle fans, at the end of the day, is what's going to be considered the casual fans. And you're going to need your casual fans to be on board. So if Jaron Ennis can maintain his diehard fans and capture the fickle fans, the casual fans, and even the haters that are like, nah, he was not worth the hype, this week can be something very special for Jaron Ennis, you know? So I agree. But everyone has bad performance. Andre Ward, Terrence Crawford, Floyd Mayweather, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, Roberto Duran, Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, I mean Thomas Hearns, like Naoya Inoue, you know, Usyk, you know, those are great names to be in company with, of having similarities of I had off night. They all have off nights, right? So Micah, there is no rehydration clause in this fight because if he was solely fighting for the IBF alone, the IBF does a 10-pound rehydration clause the following day. And that's the only time it applies to fighters. If you're fighting for the IBF, you got a 10-pound next day rehydration clause. Once you unify, the WBA, which he's fighting for, does not have a next day, so it trumps it. So in this case, there will no longer be a next day 10-pound rehydration clause. And the only time it happens outside of that is if it's put in a contract or if you fight in a state that requires it. So like Virginia, for example, the state of Virginia requires, even without a title, it mandates fighters to have a 10-pound rehydration the following day. So title, no title, if you're just 2-0, an amateur, turning pro, you have to do a 10-pound rehydration clause in the state of Virginia. So I'm sure a lot of fighters don't want to fight in Virginia. I'm sure Edwin De Los Santos probably doesn't like the idea of probably having to do a 10-pound rehydration clause in Virginia when he fights in Norfolk. He probably has no clue. Maybe he has no clue. I hope he does. That he has to do a 10-pound rehydration clause. So it's no fault of Keyshawn alone. So Oh, I get it now. Fair weather is a normal thing in today's boxing. Yeah. Fair weather. That's a good way to put it. It's a good fight. I just want to watch it. It is a great fight. Boots might be chinning this fight. Yeah, a lot of people have been. But here's the thing. Even though there's like people watching his weight, looking into the fight, I know for a fact that he's going to have a better weight cut and a better, well, I don't want to say better weight cut. The weight cut is going to be what people is questioning, but he's going to have a better next day rehydration based off what I said. He won't have that rehydration clause. So, yeah, there's no rehydration clause. So, he should be feeling better the day of the fight. I appreciate, and I like Boots, Spencer Crawford. They're skillful technicians, and I get to enjoy watching the box. I agree. I think some people just want to see Boots face adversity so they can say he's not that good. Sauce, I mean, you know how boxing is, you know. It's kind of Jaron's story this week is he's kind of weirdly at a career crossroad because fight fans kind of have this love-hate relationship with him because it almost seems like they fell in love with him too soon, and when he hasn't really proven himself and faced some of this kind of like, stiff competition, some people would say, fighting his mandatories and these awkward styles, they kind of jumped off. So this is a perfect example, perfect prime fight for him to get those naysayers to get back on his back. Or even worse, even if Boots wins, but it's a tough fight, hear me out. If he wins, but it's a tough fight, and he doesn't look Superman, I think it still will kill his hype because his hype was built up to be the guy that Crawford and Spence was running from. He was the guy that people compared to Roy Jones. He's the guy that has been compared to do things that no other fighter should be compared to as a prospect, contender, non-champion to, be able to compete with. So I do think it's unfair, but at the same time, he wanted the hype. He wanted to take the attention. He enjoyed it. He basked in the glory of it. So now it's him to actually show and live up to the hype that people have given him. So, but I do believe there's a lot of people ready to just be like, yo, I knew he wasn't that good. Boots is him, Mao says. Yeah. And I've been covering Boots for a very long time, and I do have consistent criticism, and my consistent criticism with Jaron, even when he looks amazing, is that, it's boxing. You will get hit, but with his ability, his athleticism, and his slickness, it seems like he could be a lot more defensive, and not get hit as much. But overall, I think that's my only consistent criticism, for the most part. But at the end of the day, like, not everyone's going to be a defensive wizard, and we have to accept the fact that people do get hit. And, he does try to go for the knockout. He does try to hurt people. And because when you are aggressive and you present a style like that, which Jaron is, he's very aggressive, you're going to get hit a little bit more because you're taking more chances and you're fighting more in the kitchen. So, Virgil is a beast. Oh, yeah, this is the Virgil segment. Yeah, I think Virgil is definitely good. Phil says, Look, Virgil should have lost that one fight. Yeah, I thought. Boots and Virgil, the 75-75. Yeah, I mean, Virgil is a guy who has consistently shown better performances over and over. I do question that Boyachik fight. Yeah, you definitely have to watch that Boyachik fight. But $2 super chat. Good buddy Taylor, what's up, man? I appreciate the love. Say the Edwin Wait thing again. All right, so this is the case. If Edwin De Los Santos fights Keyshawn Davis in the state of Virginia, right, there is no fault on Keyshawn Davis on the next day 10-pound rehydration clause that will be needed and will be in effect, not just for Edwin De Los Santos, but for Keyshawn as well, and every single fighter on the card, unless there's some sort of like contract that like negates it, and they work with the state. But the state of Virginia requires every fighter, champion, contender, prospect, pro debut, to maintain a 10-pound next day weigh-in. They have to weigh in the next day and not be heavier than 10 pounds, period. So for Edwin De Los Santos, Even though he's not fighting for the IBF and he's fighting for the WBO, Keyshawn and Edwin both will have to maintain their weight for the next day weigh-in. And that's just how the state of Virginia goes. So it's not Keyshawn putting a contract or a clause in there. It's not Edwin De Los Santos trying to do something. It's just how it works. So that's just what it is. So when fight night comes, there will be a next day weigh-in, a morning weigh-in. And on top of that, to kind of give clarity of the Gustavo Lemos situation, Keyshawn never put a 10-pound rehydration clause in him. It was just mandatory. So that's just how it works. So, and it's probably good for boxing because at that point it prevents weight bullying. It's a natural protection for fighters to fight in their natural weight, and that's what Virginia is attempting to do: make fighters fight in their optimal kind of walk around weight, where they're not sucking down to an unhealthy weight or weight bullying in a sense. So good for Virginia on that. And yeah, that's the case. Yeah, Compton Twan says the Europeans got our number, huh? I mean, I wouldn't say like they got our number. I think it's just like, can I just keep it real? Boxing's like a dance, what they say. You need a good dance partner, right? And there's different cadences. And when you fight someone, you constantly have to put them in you have to have them fight your fight, which is kind of going your rhythm, your pace. That's what the jab is for. You're kind of offsetting their rhythm, and you're kind of putting them at your pace. You're controlling the rhythm, you're controlling the pace, and you're resetting them every time you tap them, right? You know, when you're kind of like dancing and you're in the club and you're dancing with everybody, and all of a sudden someone keeps bumping you, you know, they're knocking you out of your rhythm, and you're no longer able to kind of dance to the beat accordingly if someone keeps bumping you. That's the jab. The jab is constantly bumping you out of your rhythm. So what a lot of these Eastern European cadences and rhythms, for example, Karen or Majimov, they're very irky-jerky. They're very like, you know, you can't really catch their rhythm. You can't catch their beat. So in the case of Crawford, or even the case of Boots when you fought Karen, they're kind of used to this kind of rhythm that is kind of like a hip-hop or soul or a cadence of a 1-4 or whatever. You know what I mean? It's natural in our DNA. Well, when you got a guy that looks like he has no rhythm, like has no footwork, like in a sense, like if you put him in the club, it look like he'd be the dude that's dancing off the girl. You know, she goes left, he go right. Like, so how do you fight a guy that's constantly off beat? And you're trying to be on beat, and you're trying to get on rhythm with them, and you're trying to be like, oh. So to give Jaron and Crawford the benefit of the doubt, like that's why I feel like there is a stylistic matchup that kind of causes problems for the slick black American. And on the Eastern European side, 9 times out of 10, you know, they're fighting a guy, you know, if they're as good as they are, slick, elusive, athletic, reactive, right? Pull back counters, right? That's not like a normal thing that happens in their amateur. You know, when they fight in the amateurs, they don't really see a lot of guys like that, you know, until they fight on a big stage. So that's a style that is kind of difficult for them because you got a guy that's very explosive and kind of catches you off guard yourself, you know. So 9 times out of 10, they make very either boring fights or I mean, Rob, I'm half black, so if that's what you're fishing, that's why I meant our DNA. I'm black, so I'm speaking as a black guy, right? A black man. So, but it's just a rhythm. It's a rhythm thing. So ultimately, that's what I'm mentioning. Where if guys fight in rhythms they're not familiar with, they tend to struggle. Soya Boychuk beat him. Yeah, I thought Boychuk beat Virgil. Boots versus Teofimo. I think Boots would favor. I would favor Boots and Teo. I would favor Boots. Throw a pick. I'm sick. Boots in 6. Dude, I don't know if Boots is. If Boots is comfortable from the early rounds, then I can probably see him like building into maybe a late stoppage. But if it takes him a while to figure it out, you know, Stanionis is tough. He's durable. You know, he can take a shot. You know, I wouldn't be surprised this goes the distance. So, Can't wait for Ennis and Stanionis here in the Philippines. Oh, that's what's up. It's going to be a good fight, man. I'm looking forward to the fight. What Ennis overlooked, though, is I find himself going 12 with Stanley. He'll be washed, asked Delorme. I mean, none. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I could see this going 12, you know? And the longer the fight goes, I can see it strangely benefiting Stanionis, you know? Because Stanionis is strong. He's durable. He's a tough guy, you know? There's a potential for Stanionis to make it a very rough and tough fight, you know? But I still favor Jaron. If Boots and Turk can link up, he can stay very relevant and make big hype to back his hype. Boots versus Norman should have happened first than Stanionis. I mean, I feel like in this case now, I feel like Brian has kind of like hyped up the fight more, and so now like I feel like the fight has a bigger value when it comes to like entertainment, right? There's some trash talking and some build up. Stanionis and Jaron is just like a good old school. I want to fight the best. Two guys that are pretty much, quote, in their prime, undefeated, respectful but competitive. There's not really a lot of hype except for the fact that it's just a good old-fashioned number one, number two kind of fight. And that's really what sometimes you just need in boxing, just to have like a good, relaxing night of just, no shenanigans. Just a good old fight. In Brian's case, I think it's better for Brian afterwards because it gives Brian, the youngest male champion, to develop, get a little bit better. You know what I mean? I still favor Jaron, but it allows him to season up a little bit more because he's still technically, in my opinion, green in a sense because, at the age that he's at, Jaron's been able to have a lot more fights and get a lot more season. And the Stanionis fight alone, puts him there. So Brian's dad will be able to sell the fight, promote it, talk trash, build attention, do his thing, whatever he needs to do at Top Rank. Let's say hypothetically he fights Mario Barrios. I think Mario Barrios is a more winnable fight for him versus Stanionis. Build his confidence. And now you got potentially like a good undisputed fight amongst two guys who will talk some trash and have some history. They've sparred each other like 100 times. I think as a build-up, I think it's better that way, personally. But if you feel like as a stepping ladder of who is the better opponents and Jaron should fight the lesser, no disrespect to Norman, I do feel like Norman is placed lower than Stanionis for now. You know what I mean? Just for now. Because Norman's still green and newer. Stanionis has shown a lot more consistency and fought better competition. And he's shown, like I said, that consistency. Norman is starting to show consistency. He had kind of really bad fights before the Stantilling. We have now trying to grow into seeing, can he maintain that championship status? You know what I mean? So I think Stanionis has done that better. Stanionis has got to be Boots' first real test. I think Stanionis is the pressure machine. Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a step up from Karen, personally. And I think regardless of what people say that Karen's a tricky fighter, on paper, Stanionis is his toughest fight. So if Jaron dismantles Stanionis, he definitely deserves all the credit. All the credit. And all the hate and all the bashing he's gotten over the month, I think it's fair to kind of turn that off and throw some flowers, praise him a little bit, So CCI, I got Stanionis by split decision. That's just a fair pick. I think he's a live underdog. I think 4-1. I really think Jaron Ennis is definitely going to win the fight. No questions asked. But, something tells me that maybe it should be like a 3-1. Maybe not a 2-1, but a 3-1, a fair live underdog. And I think 4-1 might be a little bit too much. A little bit too much. I know the style favors Jaron because people think Stanionis is going to come forward. Jaron Ennis does great with pressure fighters. He does not do good with guys with good footwork like Karen. And I'm not saying he doesn't do good because he clearly won both fights with no hesitation, but he didn't look his best. So a guy like Stanionis will present his best type of style where he looks amazing. So I get the 4-1, but I think we got to shed a light a little bit more with Stanionis, and also have to question Jaron just a little bit from that Karen fight. We have to. Like us boxing fans, and it's not being a hater, because I've been covering Jaron for a very long time. You just have to question Jaron just a little bit after looking a little shaky against a guy like Karen. You know what I mean? So, the Mayweather effect is a problem in this era. Oh, yeah. I mean, how many undefeated fighters has there been in boxing that's been at the top? You know? We see little to few. You know? Rocky Marciano arguably could have maybe not been undefeated if it wasn't a plane crash. You know? Yeah, unfortunately, his boxing career ended based off of a life incident. Floyd is an anomaly. He's not just one of the best fighters to ever do it, but he was also able to be in a position to manage his career, you know. And I don't think he cherry picked his career. I just think he was able to manage his career in a way where he was able to fight the fights when he wanted to, and the guys he wanted. If he felt his best, he fought probably what he thought was the best. He felt maybe sluggish, maybe fight this guy. Regardless of whatever the case is, you know, Floyd cleaned out so many divisions and so many guys. I mean, can't fight them all. So, and then Andre Ward, you know, arguably in my personal opinion, lost to Sergey Kovalev in his first fight. So in my mind, I kind of technically don't see him undefeated, but he is undefeated. But he was able to run it back, got the rematch, and good buddy Taylor, I see. I got what goes on. What, my man what goes on grits? You could put a lot of stuff on grits. You could put butter on grits. You can put eggs on grits. Listen, brother, I personally am not a fan of grits. Right? You can probably even call me privileged. All right. But I'm not a fan of grits. But you definitely put eggs. You can put butter. You can put a lot in grits. So if that's you trying to check my half black side about what goes in grits, yeah. My man hit me with the grits question though, man. I guess that's a W question, right? Like, that's fair, right? I'm just not a fan of grits, man. I'm just not a fan of grits. Yeah. You put salt and pepper and chili in my grits, hot sauce. I mean, I feel like hot sauce is a default. Cheese. Yeah, people put cheese. Yeah, people do put sugar in grits. People do put sugar in grits. They do. All that stuff is in there. I personally, if I do eat grits, right? If I do eat grits, I would put eggs. You know, butter is like, butter's like, I would probably have to put eggs, like an over easy egg, and mix it up, right? Polenta with shrimp, fish and grits, shrimp and grits. I see a lot of people put just a slice of cheese, just square American cheese and grits. You know, bacon and grits actually probably would be fire. You know, bacon would be fire. Black people don't put sugar in grits. I've never seen anyone put sugar in grits, but I've heard people put sugar in grits though. I've seen people put sugar in grits. Is it weird though that people put sugar in grits though? I would just do an over easy egg, bro. That's just me personally. And maybe cheese, but I just don't like grits, bro. I don't like grits, man. Bacon would be fire. Put bacon in the grits. Eggs. But yeah, neither here or there. Yeah. It's 2025, man. People do what they want with their food. So Stanionis' jab is better. Boots needs to target Stanionis. Stanionis' jab is better. But Boots, I've heard that before. And I haven't did an actual fight analysis, but someone told me like they felt like Stanionis' jab is better than Boots. And I don't know. Like, I know like Boots has a flashy, snappy jab that goes out but I don't know. I have to do kind of a breakdown on that. Sardines, oats, seaweed. For those who eat sugar and grits, where y'all from? Yeah, I've never did no sugar on any type of breakfast food. I mean, like, no. I mean, look, they've done the bacon, right? I can't believe we're doing like a breakfast breakdown. I mean, they've done like the maple bacon. I guess that's technically like a sweet, but I've never put sugar on eggs. I've never put sugar on bacon. I've never put sugar on grits. I've never put sugar on anything like that. But hey, each his own. Hey, each his own, right? Thoughts on TKO entering the boxing business? Well, I'm hearing they're trying to allegedly peel back what Lance Pugmire is saying, like the Ali Act, and if that's the case, I don't like it. I don't like it. Western Europe more freestyle. Okay. Why wouldn't he be? Ain't talking about Terrence Crawford ducking boots. Are you asking why ain't no one talking about Terrence Crawford ducking boots? I mean, I don't even think that's like I just don't believe in Terrence ducking boots. Like, I talked to Terrence many times, and Terrence is definitely not a guy that gives me that he's in any sort of ducking. If anything, I don't know. It's not even worth even getting into it because it's just like they're not even fighting. Plus, Terrence is going to fighting Canelo, and so it's just, you know what I mean. I just, you gotta understand when a fighter gets to a certain point of their career, and I'm not saying this is what you're saying, Terrence. I just don't know if this is what you're asking. If this is what you're asking, I think that's what you're asking. I'm just answering the question, but I might be reading it wrong. But if you are asking, it's just when you get to a certain point in your career, man, you gotta just take what you gotta do what's best for you. You know what I mean? And you can't really just be in a position to always keep fighting guys with low rewards, you know. And Jaron, unfortunately, would have been a low reward. That's just would have been the case. You know, if Jaron would have had the cachet in Canelo, then Terrence would have been up in arms to fight him. You know what I mean? But Terrence, at his age, he has probably like a fight left. And if he beats Canelo, he might do one more. But if he loses to Canelo, I definitely see him hanging it up. So, like, at his age and where he's at, you know, so. Ennis Stanionis would stay in the pocket for most of, you know, a part of me feels like Ennis likes to stay in the kitchen a little bit longer than he should, knowing his size and his attribute. You feel like he would be able to, like, jab his way into, like, a good position. But sometimes he likes to fight. That's the Philly in him. You know, he's a Philly fighter. He likes to show that he can fight in the inside, and he definitely has a good inside game. He gets touched up a little bit more than I like, but other than that, you know, his offense in the inside is great, and you know, he likes to put that on test. Maybe he's trying to test Stanionis and try to break his will. Maybe he's trying to show out for the fans. So, but I do feel like at some point, Jesus, there's probably going to be a point where they will be fighting up close. I think if Jaron maintains a mid-range, I think he'll be able to kind of make it easier. But if he makes a phone booth fight, then, you know, he gives Stanionis a great opportunity to land a lot of good shots. I agree, Boots dance better in the club, so he beats Stanionis for sure. Let me skip around a little bit. I'm sorry if I didn't read some of your comments. Let me, Tio don't fight Matias, imagine Boots. Yeah, I don't think Tio's not beating Boots, in my opinion. If Boots steps on Stanionis, I don't want to hear shit else. Well, that's what that's where it goes, Terrence, right? If he destroys Stanionis, Floyd Gotti style, like he speaks of, I think a lot of pundits, boxing fans, and even Jaron Ennis fans themselves will be kind of in awe because Stanionis is a durable guy. And I think if Jaron Ennis is able to make it look easy, dominate, show out, showboat, and have like a signature stoppage, I think the boxing world will be talking about that for the next month. I think so. I think everyone will be heavily on the Jaron Ennis bandwagon. You know, all the writers, all the, you know, myself included, right? Like, you know, I'm like, yo, I don't know, man. Like, you know what I mean? You know, and I praised Jaron Ennis heavily on FightHype. You know what I mean? I've interviewed him many times. I went out to his gym. I spent my own money. You know, invested a lot of time. You know, so I would like to see success on that, and I think and vice versa with Stanionis too. You know, I haven't had the luxury to be around Stanionis, but I've talked to him, done extensive interviews with him, and I think he's a very good guy, and I think it's either or. I'd be happy for it both. But in this situation where people have Stanionis as the underdog, you know what I mean, myself included, you know, I can't really criticize Stanionis if he loses this fight. I think the criticism is always going to be on Jaron, win or lose, because people are looking at him to be the next big thing. So he gets a different type of criticism because of the position he's at. And hopefully you guys understand what I mean by when I say that. You know, his criticism comes unfairly, but the upside is a lot more than any other fighter gets. If he accomplishes the things he does, he will be praised and loved more. You think Stanionis can compete at 154 in the future? It's hard to tell. I think these two guys fighting each other will let us know, you know, what type of level they're at to be able to compete with the top guys at 154. Because when you get to 154, some big guys. Fedor's big. Bakram's big. You know, Terrence is about to drop the WBA. So, you know, there's some big guys there, though, you know. I like Boots by Stanionis. Been hunting him and Virgil forever, and don't sleep on this guy. Yeah, this is gonna be a worthy opponent. Absolutely. We need another Rumble in the jungle. Hey, what up, J-Lex? Hey, my man called me Smiley. What's up, man? Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully we'll get an entertaining fight, right? Stanionis stops Ennis 10-12. Wow. I mean, anything is possible in boxing. This might be a Barrera Nassim moment, a basic jab beating the flashy fighter type of fight. I mean, we've seen this happen many times, right? TCP, you know, Stanionis beating Jaron Ennis wouldn't be the most shocking, you know, moment in boxing for me. So, Brian Norman Sr. haven't hyped up nothing. He's just saying this to build up his son. Hey, Terrence, you know, we don't want to fight. They want Boots to move up. I can't say that they want Boots to move up, right? I think if they were able to get more money, which is what they were trying to get, I think they would have took it. Like, I'm dead serious. I think what either happened is they either overpriced themselves or Eddie wasn't willing to put up the money and invest into what was potentially what it seemed like Jaron's only option to be unified. Now, in this case, it's been proven, no, he had other options, and now he's able to be unified. But at that particular time, it didn't really seem like Jaron didn't have any options. So it seemed like either Eddie wasn't willing to invest to get his fighter what he wanted, or the Normans was pricing himself out. Neither here now, it doesn't matter, but I do think the Normans do want to fight. So I can't wait to see Boots without the IBF 10-pound rehydration clause. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a completely different fighter based off of that, but he's staying in the division longer. So every time he's cutting, you know, we have to see the weight cut. That's one, but that's definitely going to help him out the morning of. So I agree. Ennis, Stanionis would stay in the pocket per... Oh, okay, I think I read that. Boots using nutrition for his first time in his career. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a very good point. I forgot about that. He's definitely investing more. I think he did, right? Am I tripping? Did he always have a nutritionist before? I know it used to be Rob. Yeah, he's never had a nutritionist. So, yeah. I'm just going through his camp. It's Coach L, Bozy, strength and conditioning coach. So, if that's true, then that should play a factor. And I feel like every big fighter should have a nutritionist. It just blows my mind. Like Earl Spence didn't have a nutritionist for a while. That just blew my mind at the level that he was. So, oh, I appreciate it, Bless. I feel this year of upsets and exposure, Stanionis finna get a draw. Yeah, I mean, we just saw Lamont Roach, right? Lamont Roach came in with a lot of confidence and was able to shock the world and arguably beat Gervonta Tank Davis, and essentially knocked him down. And so it wouldn't be surprising if Stanionis did it to Jaron. Like, I'm just not, like, in the field of thinking any of these guys are unbeatable. I wouldn't be surprised if Rolly Romero knocked out Ryan Garcia. I wouldn't be surprised if Barboza outboxed Teofimo Lopez. I wouldn't be surprised if Devin Haney, essentially didn't recover and had a tough time with Jose Ramirez. So wouldn't be surprised at all. All right. I'm gonna skip through. I know there's like a lot of grits talk. I'm skipping that section again. Yeah, y'all are crazy. Sugar on eggs is wild. All right. Let me read some of the comments from some other people I probably haven't really pulled up. I'm gonna speed through. This fool said Mario Barrios. Josh Taylor moving to 147 would be interesting. Undisputed. I don't know, man. Josh Taylor, I think he's kind of not the same fighter anymore, even without him moving to 147. I mean, without him moving to 147. I think he's had some injuries, long-lasting injuries that affected some of his performances, not taking away the people that beat him. But I just think Josh Taylor is just not the same. I think he suffered a lot of physical damage, either from fighting tough or training injuries. I just don't think Josh Taylor. I think moving to 147 is going to show Josh Taylor himself is going to have a harder time than he did at 140. Unfortunately, I think Josh Taylor's at the end of his career, but we'll see. Mario Barr shouldn't even be a champion 147. He's over there babysitting the titles. I mean, we got to see what... I thought Mario Barrios and Stanionis was going to fight each other, right? The PBC plan. So maybe Mario Barrios will fight the winner of this, right? I mean, it also said that he was going to fight Conor Benn, but Conor Benn's fighting Chris Eubank, so... Filling grits, no eggs. Mexican Boxing says, Boots, hype job, no defense, Ennis. I bet at 500 Stanionis. Easy money. Wow. Once again, proves my point. A lot of people feel like Jaron Ennis is hyped. So, I'm going to skip some of the race baiting stuff. Brian Norman beats them all, TCP says. Look, even though I do feel like Brian Norman is the most green in the... yeah, he's the most green because Martin Barnes has been in with Ugas and stuff like that. I think Brian, even though he's the most green, I think he has the most upside because he is only 24. Like, he's only 24 years old. So because of that, he's going to make mistakes. He kind of came in the position of kind of like not with as much hype as some of the other guys. And even then, in my personal opinion, I felt like when he fought Santillan, he was kind of being served up to a certain point, a certain degree, for Santillan to have his coming out. And it was the other way around. It was Brian Norman's night to upset. Like, he went to Santillan's backyard. Like, think about this. Brian Norman had 2-3 bad performances. Top Rank has him fight Santillan in his backyard when Santillan had this amazing performance against Alexa Rocha. And he goes and destroys him there. Like, I don't think that was the plan, to have an Atlanta fighter go to San Diego and have a performance like that there. I'm pretty sure that the plan was for Santillan to have a great performance in his hometown, and it went the other way around. So I think he has the most upside in this case, but I still feel like he's definitely green in some areas. And but he, like I said, he's young. He's the youngest male champion active right now. So Boots had the opportunity before the Ananesian guy. I don't know what that means. For this generational fighter, Boots has fought nobody of note. It's embarrassing. Just start padding his record. Stanionis will stop him. This is the type of fight that we need, right? You know, I definitely can say that Jaron Ennis has definitely got a lot of hype and attention. He's been adored by many. He's been praised by a lot. And based off his accomplishments, and there's no shade to this, he hasn't done anything. And he's acknowledged that. He acknowledged that the IBF belt was essentially handed to him, and he didn't fight essentially a defending world champion for his title. So he does not feel like essentially a champion in this sense. So he's looking at this fight kind of like, I am a challenger trying to take Stanionis' belt. And with that mindset, is a respectful mindset because it kind of is coming from a humble position. He hears what the criticism is. He hears what people are saying. He understands that the praise and hype and attention that he's got, it comes from just, the eye test and endorment and some hype. But he also recognizes that he has to do certain stuff so he can feel himself that he has became something of a worthy, champion. And I respect that, man. If he's coming in the fight thinking I'm an email champion, then he has a lot to prove, and he has a lot on his shoulders. He hears the Virgil Ortiz ducking stories. He hears, oh, he didn't look good against Kieran, and because of that, hopefully it should allow him to perform well against a very strong, durable, tough guy from Lithuania, Probably the only person on earth that believes Marvin. What you mean, boots worth the hype? I mean, look, it's very sensationalized, Big Kappa. What the title is that Jaron Ennis has been criticized to the point where people have questioned his hype. Either politics, public perception, interviews, things he said, things he hasn't said. This fight has definitely became more of like a career crossroad of him being a superstar. And he definitely knows that a lot of people has been chirping, speaking badly about him. It is not all roses and flowers, There's a hype factor that he has gained over the years, and he's lost some of that attention. You know what I mean? And it's no fault of his own because, unfortunately, he wanted the Crawford, he wanted Spence. And if he had those type of fights, I'm sure that would have expedited it. So now he has to create his own type of buzz without those type of worthy names. So fighting guys like Kieran and not looking like this destroyer that people make him out to be did hurt him. And it's unfortunate because it's just kind of like an unfair criticism. But if you want to be anointed as the generational talent that he wants to claim himself or wants to be, the next guy, like he puts himself as Floyd and Crawford and Sugar Ray Leonard, then he has to look absolutely amazing against guys that they have him as a 4-1 favorite. And that's just how it goes. It seems unfair, but if you want to be the number one guy, Usyk gets unfair criticism. Inoue gets unfair criticism. Crawford gets unfair criticism. Bivol gets unfair criticism. It just happens, Canelo for a while gets unfair criticism. I mean, it's just what happens when you're the top of the top. So if he wants to make it there, he has to be able to perform in these type of fights. And I think that's fair. I don't think that's if you're just like, I'm just trying to fight, I don't care if I'm pound for pound, and I don't care to be a generational champion, that's cool. He wants to be amongst the best. And because of that, he has to take the criticism. I'm not saying he's crying about it, too. Like, he's not. It's just, that's really what the story is. People are tuning into this fight to really find out what Jaron Ennis is really made out of. Is he really as good as everyone says he is? Is he, I don't think he likes, I think he can't control and maintain a distance from that long. We wouldn't even know. Oh, okay, you guys. If you watch Lipinus fight, he couldn't stay slick. He had to sit down and try to beat him. Yeah. He had to, fight him. And to give credit to Lipinus, he's a tough, durable guy. Like, who stops Lipinus? Has Lipinus been stopped after the Boots fight? I don't think he has, right? Lipinets. Sergey Lipinets has probably only been stopped. Oh, my bad. Adam Azim, last fight. That was recent. February. But other than that, yeah. Yeah, Villa's very durable. I feel like Villa was beating him so bad that's why he got knocked out the next fight. I know some people have kind of chastise Boots because they're like, oh, this guy knocked out Villa and he knocked him out faster than you. Yeah, I think that's probably because of the fact that Jaron gave him a beating and it broke him down pretty bad. And so now, unfortunately for Villa, when he goes out there and tries to get a tune-up, it becomes a tough fight. So, honestly, Stanionis is too relentless. He will walk him down. Very aggressive, good head movement for come forward fights. See, so a lot of people are saying this is a Jaron Ennis test. You know what I mean? And I think that if he definitely passes this test, he's definitely worth the hype in a lot of people's eyes. Boots next, then Zepeda. Stopping. Oh, okay. Man, Mexican coming here. Smoke, man. I'm going to stay away from the race baity comments, man, because I'm just not really on that right now. Villa was durable until you went 10 rounds to get punched by Ennis. Yeah, he took a lot of punches. All right, cool. I'm going to read a couple more, and I'm going to get some food, man. I am starving. Villa was durable until you went 10 rounds. Yeah. The way things are shaking out for Shakur matching, should Boots resign with Eddie and go elsewhere? Well, it's tough. Everyone's situation is different, right? When you look at Jaron Ennis, right, he signs with Eddie. He's active, right? So he's a lot more active than he was before, right? So his inactivity was a problem. He was able to get 2 homecoming fights, right? So he was able to get 2 homecoming fights, make some good money. And now, what seemed like all things that failed for Eddie Hearn and Jaron Ennis, he was able to actually make essentially it's a crossover promotional fight because Stanionis, if I'm not mistaken, Tom Brown, TGB, Sam Watson, those guys are there at Atlantic City. So they struck some sort of deal where they were able to work out with essentially a PBC fighter for a unification fight. You know, and I'm not saying I'm the biggest Eddie Hearn fan. You know, I have a lot of criticism on Eddie, but in Shakur Stevenson's inside. And it might not be no fault of, Eddie. You know, Shakur comes over and essentially he was trying to give him he was supposed to fight some guy, I forgot. But then Shakur got injured. And then the Kid Austin fight. I mean, he was supposed to get Zepeda, but then Zepeda got injured. So then Kid Austin comes in. And then Kid Austin, what do you know? He gets sick. So they have to get like this Patty electrician dude on a couple of day notice. You know, prior to the fight, then Shakur hurts his hand, I think, again, or something. Oh, no, he only hurt his hand once, but he hurt his hand in the Patty fight. So in this case, it's like, as much as I'd like to be critical on Eddie, like, Eddie's trying to get him the Zepeda fight. The Tank fight is out of the question. We know that. He's not going to fight Keyshawn, his brother. And then Lomachenko, if he wasn't going to get Lomachenko at top rank, how are you going to get Lomachenko now? And he's not with top rank. You know what I mean? So he's definitely not going to get it. So, I don't know. It's just, I'm fair with my criticism. I don't really think Eddie's doing the best for their American profile. But I think for Jaron, I think he's benefiting more. I mean, the Saudi Arabia situation, you know, 1 minute, you know, Shakur is like, oh, everything's great. Eddie's the man. Turkey's great, blah, blah, blah. Now, Shakur is saying, like, Turkey's reneging on the deal that they had, on the money that was offered. So, I think it's case by case. I can't really say Shakur and Boots are in the same situation. Because honestly, I think they're not. I think Jaron is in a way better situation than Shakur. You know, no disrespect on the idea of being an undercard fighter. But Shakur is an undercard fighter right now. Like, Shakur was put as an undercard fighter versus a main event. Like, he was an undercard fighter. Jaron Ennis was able to get a homecoming fight, and a unification fight with a cross promotion of PBC. I think that's a lot better than what's going on with Shakur. But it might be a lot more you can do with Boots than you can do with Shakur. You know? Maybe a lot more people don't want to fight Shakur. Maybe Jaron looking bad in the Kieran fight opened up the door for Stanionis. Maybe Stanionis always did want to fight. And not taking away the fact that now all of a sudden Kieran made him look, you know, human. Now he wants to jump on him. I'm not saying that's the case. But, you know, there's just too many theories. I just can't It's case by case, and I don't know what they're getting paid either. You know what I mean? The more fights this gets closer, the more Stanionis fight stoppage. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people putting Stanionis in here, man. Yep, late rounds, gonna get humbled. He was big too. That's when I said you can't say Ennis just big because he beat on a bigger dude. Yeah, Villa is big. He's a big dude. That's why I was kind of surprised that people thought Rashidi Ellis was just gonna just walk him down. Like, I was at that fight. I was like, damn, dude, Villa is a big ass guy, but Rashidi Speedy Ellis, you know, like, I don't know, man. And they were actually trying to build Rashidi versus Jaron Ennis too. I remember that. All right, I'm gonna speed through. I'm gonna just pick a couple. Sorry if I don't get to. There's just so many comments. Yeah, blah 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 blah. Yeah, this is some of that race stuff. I'm gonna stay away from it. You guys are just. I hear Haney may fight Barrios. If Haney wins, who would you favor? Haney Norman Jr. fight or Boots versus Haney fight? So damn, you're just like Haney beats Mario. So on to the next fight. You just completely dismiss Barrios. You didn't give Barrios no chance. You know, Barrios and Devin used to spar each other back in the day. But if Haney was to get past Barrios, who would I favor? I would probably Haney Norman would probably be a safer fight because, like I said, you can see there's more. Norman's more green than Boots, you know what I mean? And Boots is big for 147. And to be honest, I just don't see him doing that fight. Bill's a smart man. He's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. Very smart man. He's smarter than that. Not saying that he don't believe in his son, but he ain't going to send him to a Boots fight. Something looked wrong with Santana, even though I wasn't hating on him. There's an interview, Bless, that he did, and I'm not saying, like, I'm giving... You know, I'm taking away credit for the Norman fight. He mentioned that he didn't. There was issues that he didn't want to go into, but he claimed that there was. So, if he didn't really make it a highlight of his night, then you know. So, all right, I'm gonna read 3 more comments and I'm gonna call it a night. Let me see. Someone I haven't read. This is a fight not going to make him a superstar no matter what. This fight's not going to make him a superstar. Yeah. I mean, I agree. This is going to be more for the hardcore boxing fans, you know. If you look at the numbers, and when I mean the numbers, like the views that around like a super fight, and then you look at the numbers on this fight, you can kind of gauge like what's a super fight and what's not. This is a hardcore boxing fan fight. The numbers aren't really producing to let me know it's a superstar fight. So, in my eyes, it's just, you know, it's a good hardcore boxing fight. If he wins, he dominates. I think it will push him in a position where he can kind of look for bigger fights. But I agree, it's not a superstar fight. It is far from a superstar fight. It's a unification. It's a championship fight. But we'll leave it at that. Let me see. Is that Padley Herrera thing true or cap? You're saying that is Padley Herrera, like, they're going to fight? Or was it like Herrera was going to be like a potential opponent and but it was always Padley? Is that what you were saying? Phyllis says, I don't know why people think Stanionis doesn't have a chance. It might be a style matchup, you know, because Jaron has that slick style that in the size to kind of keep Stanionis at bay, but we'll have to see him do it. And that's the thing. So I do think Stanionis has a great chance, honestly. And I'm not trying to say Matchroom is terrible at matchmaking, but they tend to get their champions beat. So at the end of the day, like, if you look at Matchroom's roster, they kind of lose their champions due to their fights. And I get it. Oh, they're making the best versus the best. I get it. I don't know if it's a Matchroom curse, but, you know, if Matchroom ended up losing another champion Saturday night, it wouldn't be the first. Not saying that doesn't have another promoters. I'm not. But it just seems like when it seems like a matchroom fighter is about to hit that moment of like, I told you so, they kind of, boop, you know, and, you know, they have great moments too, right? Bivol just recently just beat Arthur, you know, Better Beef, you know, Katie Taylor on paper has beaten Amanda Serrano twice. So it's not like Matchroom doesn't have success stories. Raymond Ford in the last minute, but, you know, they tend to kind of have it very short-lived. So, you know, Matias, right? When he had Canelo, Bivol beat Canelo, so you can say Canelo was lost on Matchroom reign. So, but Eric says, worth the hype. He never lost. Well, you could also be a guy who never lost and not have the hype, right? Have you ever seen a fighter who's undefeated and you don't believe in him no more? Or don't think he's the next pound for pound GOAT? Or the guy that... Because let's keep it real, Eric. 4 years ago, everybody said that Jaron Ennis was the guy that was going to destroy Errol Spence, destroy Terrence Crawford. He's the guy that could wear Roy Jones' shoes. He's the guy that everybody and their mom said that can go up to 154, dominate, 160, dominate. Like, you remember those talks? So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying the fact that he isn't a worthy fighter of hype because of the fact that he's never taken a loss. Is he worthy of the hype that he once had? Hype to me is about the idea of you being everything in every single moment of what they say you are, right? Like, oh man, the hype is real, right? The hype is real. Now see, you know what I mean? This is his toughest fight. In his mind, he's fighting for his first world championship title. And we'll see. And that's all I'm saying. Is the hype real? Is he still hype? Is he, you know what I mean? Just like the title says, is Jaron Ennis still worth the hype? You know? Because at the end of the day, this fight will give us answers to that. The Virgil Ortiz ducking. The Kieran didn't make you look good. David Avanesian, you got hit too much. You didn't look all that great. You know what I mean? You know exactly, Eric, what was out there. You know exactly what's out there. And and listen, Eric, is it unfair? Is it unfair? Yeah. But that's what happens when you're the hype. When you're the hype, you get all the praise. You get all the praise. But at the same time, you get all the criticism. When you looked at as Superman, you expect to lift houses, be the fastest thing on planet Earth. If you're built like that. And if Superman looks a little bit of human, I don't know, man. I don't know if he can save planet Earth, y'all. He might not be the one. He might not be the one. That's the story of Boots' career. That's the story of Boots' life right now, Eric. And you know that. You know that. You know that. That's why you came in. Because with that concept, you believe in Boots. You believe in Boots. You were there for all the hype and all the attention and all the praise. You see his ability. But you also heard the criticism. You also heard all the naysayers. You also heard everything that people have said about him. And so this Saturday, he's fighting an undefeated guy who's been defending his title, who has a great amateur record, who's been sparring top guys. I believe in a guy who never loses. Well, welcome to boxing. There's a lot of undefeated guys, and a lot of them will lose. So do you believe in every fight? So I have a question then, Eric. And I say this respectfully, just so that I can just kind of... Stanionis has never lost. So do you believe in him? These are two undefeated guys. So why do you believe in Jaron, but not Stanionis? I'm just curious. heard the criticism, but they not getting in the ring with him, including Crawford. But hear me out. Stanionis is also a guy who never loses. He's never lost. So why is it that Jaron Ennis deserves the hype? Like, why does he get the hype, but Stanionis doesn't? Why does Stanionis get the 4-1 underdog? You know what I mean? Because you can recognize that Jaron Ennis is the guy that has the hype. Now, I'm not saying that the hype isn't real. We're going to find out Saturday night if the hype is real. But we can recognize that Jaron Ennis is the guy who's being built as the golden child. He's the darling. He's hyped up. The question is he worth the hype? Is the hype real? Are we going to see something special Saturday night from Jaron Ennis? Or are we going to see Stanionis come in and steal the show? You get what I'm saying? So, with that all being said, we'll find out Saturday night, is Jaron Ennis still worth the hype? I am going to keep it 100%. I probably have a little bit more bias towards Jaron Ennis because I have covered him. I've talked to his dad. I have met his family. I have met his team. I've seen, everyone around him. You know what I mean? There's more upside. You know what I mean? Where he trains is closer. He's in America. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like, if I want to be fair to you guys, like, I think he's had some tough fights himself. He's never had a questionable win. And I don't think Stanionis had a questionable win. And I think these two guys are coming together at a time which makes sense for boxing to give us a show where we're going to find out, without the antics, the best man on Saturday night will show up. I favor Jaron Ennis. I favor Jaron Ennis. I think Jaron Ennis will win the fight. I think he has better attributes. I think he's going to show better skills. I think he learned from the last fight. I think he's more versatile. I think I've seen a little bit more. That's just my opinion. But I can recognize that the person who I'm picking is the person who's more hyped, in a sense of who's gotten more attention, who's more praise, who's getting more love, who the fans are adoring, and that's just what it is. The guy who's selling the main event, the guy who's bringing more people to these type of showings. That's Matchroom signed Jaron Ennis for a reason. You know what I'm saying? They signed him because they recognize not just his talent, but his hype. And they feel like they can bring it out even more. So. But at the end of the day, let me see. Because okay. I my bad, Eric. I asked you questions on this. Stanionis has close fights. He scrapes by. He barely wins. He barely wins. Has there been a Stanionis fight? And you can refresh my memory if I'm wrong, all right? Because I'm human. I could be completely wrong. But has there been a fight where you're like, I don't know if Stanionis won that fight? Like, has there been a fight where Stanionis was in there and you're like, the other guy should have won? Like, has that ever happened? Because I can't recall. Because he dominated Gabriel Mastre. He won the Butai fight. There was a no contest for the Collazo. He clearly dominated Delorme. Like, has there been a fight that you're like, I don't know who won this fight? Was it Stanionis? You see what I mean? Like, I think you just believe in Jaron Ennis, just like I think Jaron Ennis is going to win, based off just what we see as boxing fans. But I think we have to give Stanionis more credit in this sense, because I think Stanionis isn't dominant fight after fight. He has those Mexican-style fights. There's many ways you can dominate a fight, though. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to, like, knock people out. You know what I mean? Like, if you really want to be fair and be honest, right? Like, there's so many ways that you can give Stanionis credit over Jaron. Stanionis beat Thomas Delorme before Jaron Ennis, But you're like, oh, Jaron Ennis knocked him out. Well, some people feel like it's the back of the head. At the same time, I don't think there's been a time where Stanionis has kind of made people question him as a fighter. Right? I don't hate the kid, right? I don't think there's ever been a time someone's questioned Stanionis like as a fighter. Why? Because he's not the hype fighter. Jaron Ennis can dominate, quote, fights, just like Stanionis dominates, but people see the flaws a little bit more. So, I don't know, man. I'm just talking in circles. It's a good fight. They're both undefeated. I appreciate both of them coming and stepping up the plate. Neither one have, quote, ducked each other. And I think it's going to be a great showing for the fight fans. Trust me, Stanionis is literally not potentially going to see the birth of his child to fight Jaron Ennis. That is some confidence. I'll tell you this, and I'm not a fighter myself, so obviously I have a totally different perspective. I'm not missing the birth of my child. Fuck that. Fuck that. And he believes in himself that he's going to go, so he can go here in another country, so he can come back with 2 belts, technically 3 belts, and be like, I did it. You know what I'm saying? That's confidence. He believes in himself, just like Boots believes in himself. And that's all we want. 2 guys that are young in their prime. You know, Stanionis is 30. Jaron Ennis is what? Jaron Ennis is 27. These are great age. They're both undefeated. These guys are very tough, durable, strong, physically capable fighters of winning amongst any of these champions. Mario Barras, Brian Norman. But we happen to get these 2 to face each other. I love it. And I have nothing negative to say. You know what I mean? And, after the fight, I think that if Jaron Ennis has a great performance, I'll make a show on Sunday. Jaron Ennis is still worth Jaron Ennis is worth all the hype. You know what I mean? If he looks amazing, looks spectacular, just for you, Eric, the title would be like Jaron Ennis is worth all the hype. Jaron Ennis is worth all the hype. So, but excellent fight. Come back, I'll say I told you so. He's a bum. Man, boxing number 1 over there, man. He coming at a lot of heat with y'all, man. Doesn't matter how he wins. It's gonna be a good fight. Yeah, even if it's not a knockout, it's gonna be a good fight, man. I don't even. It doesn't have to be a knockout. Just have a great performance. Just shut the naysayers up. There's a lot of them out there, and do you, man. Remind everybody why they believed in you in the first place. You know what I mean? So. Hey, you a hater, bro. At least he admits he's a fangirl. Look, I'll tell you one thing. If you ask me if I'm biased about something, I'll tell you I'm biased about something. And so that I can build credibility with you guys so that you know that when I'm saying I'm not being biased. You're like, all right, well, that's fair. He's admitted a lot of other biased takes. Yeah, there's a little bit more bias in that sense. But I can try my best to keep it a buck, right? And this is my way of saying it is. Like Stanionis, yeah, has a lot of skills for sure. So, Boots looks weight drained. That's what a lot of people are saying. So, but all right, y'all. I've been on here for I think almost like 2-ish hours. So I really look. I appreciate you guys always coming in, rocking. There's gonna be some content. I'm gonna be heading somewhere Saturday to get some special content. In addition to that, we'll have a lot of coverage at the Boots fight since we're talking about it. My boy KG's out there, Johnny Boy, and I think someone else is out there. So we got 3 people covering the fight, and yeah. Other than that, keep it locked on FightHype. If you guys haven't hit the like button, please do. And then a lot more of these lives will be coming as always. Like I said, I appreciate you guys coming and staying by. And you guys have a good one. I'll be back a little later. Maybe I might go live one more time tomorrow, depending if there's any drama. Appreciate you, Phil, Chet, Eric, Mexican Boxing One, FNM, Perez, Bet on Black. I know one thing, Boots better be careful with that showboating. I agree. Saying, Soraya, Boots looks drained in his face. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying, man. Good thing he has that 10 pounds next day. Damn, said Boots would get dropped from a hook. Damn, I didn't even see that. Kwanzaa King, Rusty Cage. Oh man, my bad, my volume was low. Terrence Smith. Yeah, I appreciate all you guys. My Rusty Cage, Garfield. So Nick Santana. So, and also the super chat. My boy earlier. Where'd you go? Show some love earlier. Dang, I don't even see it. Man, where is it? Oh, good buddy, Rob the Barbarian. Appreciate you guys' super chats, man. So, you guys have a good one, man. You guys take care.